Welcome to an inspiring story about Ethan, a man who once hit rock bottom, lost everything, and wandered aimlessly through his own life. But just when it seemed like all was over, a small glimmer of light guided him. The light of faith, lessons from the past, and an awakening deep within his soul. This journey isn't just Ethan's story, it might also be yours, a story of struggles, moments of doubt, but most importantly, the courage to rise again and rediscover hope. Fire if you're looking for motivation and strength to keep going. Don't miss this story. Hit like and subscribe to stay updated with more meaningful videos. Ethan sat motionless in the dimly lit room, the weak glow of the lamp unable to hide the exhaustion etched deep into his face. Unpaid bills piled up on the table, a relentless reminder of his worsening financial situation. Rent was due soon, but his bank account was nearly empty. The job he once had high hopes for had become a burden, as the company announced layoffs, and Ethan wasn't sure how much longer he could hold on. Sleepless nights had become a habit. Every time he closed his eyes, he was overwhelmed by anxious thoughts about the future. If he lost his job, what would he do? Did he have what it took to start over? The fear of failure consumed him, making him feel trapped in a downward spiral with no way out. It wasn't just his finances, Ethan's mental state was deteriorating as well. Friends who had once been close gradually drifted away, partly due to their own busy lives, but also because he no longer had the energy to maintain relationships. The loneliness crept in, convincing him that he was fighting this battle alone. Things took a turn for the worse when his health began to decline. The prolonged stress robbed him of his appetite, and meals became rushed and meaningless, just something to get through the day. His body grew weaker, and his mind was constantly in a state of tension and unease. At times, in his most vulnerable moments, Ethan wondered if there was still any hope for him. Was life meant to be an endless struggle? He had once dreamed, once believed in a better future, but now, those dreams felt like distant memories. Ethan didn't know what to do next. He only knew that if things continued this way, he would eventually break. The night was quiet, but inside Ethan's heart, there was nothing but noise, chaos, regrets, and an overwhelming sense of emptiness. He sat on the cold floor of his dimly lit apartment, surrounded by the ruins of what used to be his life. Bills and overdue notices were scattered on the table. His phone lay silent, devoid of messages or calls from the friends who had once filled his days with laughter. The loneliness was suffocating. His fingers trembled as he reached for an old wooden box tucked away in the corner of his closet. It had been years since he last opened it. Dust coated its surface, a reminder of how long he had abandoned the past. With a deep breath, he lifted the lid and found himself staring at pieces of a life he had almost forgotten. Photographs of his childhood, little trinkets he had kept from family trips, and at the very bottom, a folded piece of yellowed paper. His heart clenched the moment he saw it. He knew what it was before he even opened it. A letter from his mother. She had written it when he was just a boy, too young to understand its true meaning. Back then, it had been just another piece of advice from a loving parent. But now, as a broken man desperately searching for something to hold on to, these words carried a weight he had never felt before. With shaky hands, he unfolded the paper and began to read. My dear Ethan, life will not always be kind. There will be days when everything feels like it's falling apart, when the weight of the world seems too much to bear. But remember this, you are stronger than you think. No storm lasts forever. When you are lost, return to what truly matters: kindness, patience, and faith in yourself. Hard times will test you, but they will also shape you. Don't let fear control you. Keep moving forward, even if it's just one small step at a time. I believe in you always. Tears blurred his vision. He could almost hear her voice speaking those words, warm and gentle, filled with the quiet strength that had defined her. His mother had been through so much in her life: poverty, heartbreak, loss. Yet, she had never once let it turn her bitter or hopeless. He closed his eyes and memories flooded back. He saw her, standing by the kitchen stove, humming softly as she cooked his favorite meal after a long day. He remembered the way she would sit beside him when he had nightmares, stroking his hair and whispering that everything would be all right. He saw her hands, calloused from years of hard work, yet always so gentle when she wiped away his tears. She had been his safe place, his anchor. And yet, when she needed him the most in her final days, he had been too consumed by his own ambitions to be by her side. The guilt stabbed at his chest. I'm sorry, Mom, he whispered, clutching the letter as if it could somehow bring her back. For so long he had been chasing success, blinded by greed, thinking that power and wealth would make him whole. But all they had done was strip him of the things that truly mattered. He had lost everything, not just his career but his sense of self. Yet, his mother's words reminded him that he wasn't beyond saving. He wasn't powerless. Asterisk, keep moving forward even if it's just one small step at a time. Asterisk. For the first time in a long while, something inside him stirred, not just sorrow but the faintest glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to change. Ethan sat in his small room, the warm glow of the lamp casting soft shadows on the bare walls. In his hands was his mother's old letter, its words sinking deeper into his soul than ever before. His heart was heavy with emotions, regret, sorrow, and an overwhelming loneliness. But amidst all these feelings, something else began to emerge, a tiny, fragile spark of hope. For the first time in a long while, Ethan felt the need to do something he had long forgotten: pray. He wasn't sure why. Maybe because he had nothing left to lose, or maybe because, deep down, he wanted to believe that there was still a way back. Hesitantly, he knelt beside his bed, fingers clasped together, his head slightly bowed. In the past, his mother had always started her day with a prayer, a habit he once dismissed as meaningless. But now, standing at the edge of despair, he longed to feel even a fraction of the peace she had carried with her. Lord, if you're still listening, please help me. His voice was hoarse, broken. At first, the words were awkward and uncertain. But slowly they began to flow, not from his lips, but from the depths of his heart. He wasn't asking for wealth or success like he once did. He was simply searching for himself, for the peace he had lost. I don't know what to do anymore. I've been lost for so long, chasing things I thought would make me happy, only to find emptiness. I've hurt the people who loved me. I've let fear and greed control my life. But now I just want to start over. Please show me the way. A tear rolled down his cheek. But this time it wasn't the tear of despair, it was the tear of surrender. The weight he had been carrying for years suddenly felt a little lighter. He wasn't expecting a miracle. He wasn't waiting for a voice from the heavens or a shining light to illuminate his path. But in that moment, something inside him shifted. A quiet sense of relief, as if he had finally set down the heavy burden he had carried for so long. His mother's words echoed in his mind. Keep moving forward even if it's just one small step at a time. And now he finally understood. What mattered wasn't how many times he had fallen, but whether he was willing to get back up. Ethan exhaled slowly, as if releasing years of pain and doubt. He stood up, his eyes no longer clouded with hopelessness. For the first time in years he felt a sense of direction. Not towards a grand career, not towards fame or fortune, but towards something far more important: finding himself again. And that journey began with something simple, a small spark of faith, a single step forward. The morning after his heartfelt prayer, Ethan awoke with a strange sensation, a quiet calmness he hadn't felt in years. The heaviness in his chest wasn't entirely gone, but it had eased, as if something within him had begun to heal. For years, his mind had been consumed by fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough. It had pushed him into a relentless pursuit of success at any cost, blinding him to the things that truly mattered. But now, after surrendering his pain in prayer, he found himself questioning everything he once believed. Sitting by the window, he watched the city wake up. The same city that had once felt suffocating now seemed different. He noticed the little things, the way the sunlight bathed the rooftops in gold, the laughter of children playing in the distance, the scent of freshly brewed coffee drifting through the air. It was as if he were seeing the world through new eyes. He reached for his mother's letter again, reading each word carefully, letting them sink into his soul. True success is not in what you own, but in the peace you carry within. He had spent so many years chasing after things, money, status, approval, believing they would bring him happiness. But they had only left him feeling emptier than before. Now, for the first time, he wondered, what if peace and happiness weren't things to chase, but things to cultivate from within? The realization struck him like a wave. He had been searching in the wrong places all along. Instead of focusing on what he lacked, he began to see what he still had: his health, his mind, his ability to change. Instead of dwelling on past mistakes, he started thinking about what he could do now to make things right. It wouldn't be easy. There were bridges he had burned, wounds he had caused. But if there was one thing he now understood, it was that he couldn't let his past define his future. He still had a choice. Taking a deep breath, Ethan picked up his phone. His fingers hovered over the screen before he finally found the courage to type a message. "Dad, I'm sorry. Can we talk?" For a long moment there was no response. His heart pounded, fear creeping in. But then the screen lit up with a reply. "I've been waiting for this, son." Ethan exhaled, a mixture of relief and emotion washing over him. It was a small step, but it was a step in the right direction. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't just existing, he was living. The next morning, Ethan woke up earlier than usual. The heavy weight on his chest that had burdened him for so long was gone, replaced by an indescribable sense of relief. He stretched, taking a deep breath, letting the fresh morning air fill his lungs, as if cleansing away all the sorrows that had clung to him over the years. As he pulled back the curtains, golden sunlight poured into the room, casting a warm glow over everything. Ethan gazed outside, where the sky was transitioning from soft purple to a brilliant shade of blue. For the first time in a long while, the city no longer felt suffocating or overwhelming. It was vast, full of opportunities and miracles waiting to unfold. A deep sense of stability settled within him. The fears and worries that once pushed him to the edge were now just memories. They no longer had power over him. His mother's words, written in the letter, echoed in his mind. You may lose everything but never lose yourself. When you find your faith again, you will find your way. Ethan smiled. He understood now. Happiness was not a distant destination. It was the peace found within his own heart. With faith filling his soul, nothing could shake him anymore. He picked up his phone, sending a message to his father before calling an old friend he had neglected in his relentless pursuit of success. Today he no longer feared conversations. He was ready to face his past, to confront the things that once hurt him, and above all he was ready to forgive others and himself. Outside, the sun had fully risen, illuminating the path ahead. And this time Ethan knew he would walk forward with unwavering faith, free from hesitation or doubt. The dawn of hope had arrived. And this was his new beginning.